this is biology in space?
Yep, biology in space. So Dr. WD-40, if you're watching, feel free to hop into Zoom and join us.
Okay.
We are ready when you
what's
are.
Up with the hang our number?
So this is actually an active count.
Oh.
Annie's just discovering that we have a current count on our screen.
Oh my god, that
skeleton! we can see you. Good morning, Dr. WD-40.
He's like, what? What's wrong?
Okay, I didn't know I was on already. Here we go.
Yeah. So so Annie could see you right off the bat and started making noise. So I popped you over to be live so everyone else could join in the glory that is the skeleton that you now need to describe to our audience.
This is Dr. Captain Jack Marrow. So
that is a brilliant pun.
I put the Santa hat on him just for today.
So we have our Christmas tree that is decorated in planets because of course it is.
Wait, is his name really Captain Jack Morrow?
Yes, the skeleton's name is really Captain Jack Morrow.
Oh wow.
Yep. He's also the mod in my chat.
He's the mod in your chat. Oh my god, that's awesome.
Well, the bot, I guess.
I knew what you meant. So you are another one of the science streamers here on twitch.tv and you stream as Dr. WD-40, but in real life you studied astrobiology as an undergraduate. You are now a PhD biologist.
Yep.
And tell folks who don't know you about who you are and about your channel here on Twitch, which all of you should go out and follow.
All right, yeah, I'm Dr. W40. You guys just all call me Wade. I don't care. So, yeah, I'm an instructor, and I teach anatomy and physiology, genetics, microbiology, and general biology. My background is quite diverse, which I wouldn't recommend if someone's just getting into school.
No,
don't
that hurts.
Super diverse yourself because it's hard to get into grad school then. Astrobiology is pretty much an undecided science degree in the end. It's space science, chemistry, biology, and physics, but not enough to be a major in any of those. So yeah, I then focused on biology for my PhD with my researching in Alzheimer's disease. The lab I joined before I got there, and the reason I was interested in this lab was because the focus was on bone loss in space.
Yeah.
But after talking with my advisor for a while, that project, we didn't think we could get a dissertation out of it. So the other part of the lab researched Alzheimer's disease. So I focused on that, and that's what I got my PhD in. And then I finished, and then started teaching as an adjunct because academia, that's where you got to start.
Yes.
And unless you do the whole postdoc route, but I just wanted to teach. And so I got into teaching, and as an adjunct, you have lots of free time because you're only allowed to teach 15 credits a semester, and which isn't a lot. So then I was like, what am I going to do with all my free time? And I always watch Twitch. So I'm like, I'm going to stream stuff and talk about science as I stream. I didn't know anyone ever did it. So like I started by playing games and chatting about science as I game. Then I found Brain Bites. I'm like, wait, there's some people that actually do educational content.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I started focusing more of my streams towards educational content, and it just evolved from there. Now we have the Knowledge Fellowship, which is finding all these educational streamers, bringing them to a central hub. And it's just really nice how it all evolved.
And all the folks that you guys out there in the audience see us rating after the Daily Space and Rocket Launches and all of the other shows that we do, those are all members of the Knowledge Fellowship. Oh Bother, Bill Nash, Banzai Baby. And that is how I found them, Timber Anu. And I would totally raid you, but you're usually not streaming when we're raiding. And
it's when I'm working.
yeah, I'm sorry. So this is what happens when you do a lot of lunchtime streaming.
Yeah.
Now, you're right about astrobiology when you say it really is I don't know what I want to do when I grow up other than science kind of
Yeah.
degree. And it's such a new field that it was just starting to be defined when you were an undergraduate.
Yes. I'm actually technically the first bachelor's degree holder in astrobiology/space sciences.
That's awesome. And
So
also horrifying because, yeah, that makes getting into grad school really hard.
yeah, it's not great degree wise. Because when you're applying to grad school, they're like, yeah, your degree's too diverse. And I didn't want to take the physics GRE because I was missing 3 courses that were on the physics GRE.
Oh no. Oh dear.
So
Um,
that took the physics side away. And I actually substituted some of the courses towards the end when I realized that with biology courses, because when you're studying physics, biology becomes very easy.
yes. Yes. Now, biology and space science have been advancing and defining what astrobiology is in the years since you worked on your degree. Do you still follow along with any of the papers that are coming out or anything?
A little bit, but like everything is like exoplanets are described as astrobiology. Extremophiles are described as astrobiology. So it's such a diverse field that it doesn't have like one set thing. Or like we're talking
Yeah.
about today, humans in space. It's its own discipline of astrobiology. Like to keep, up to date on everything in astrobiology would be very, very difficult. But like way back when I had a summer internship at Goddard Space Flight
Mhm.
Center, and like just the projects there in their astrobiology unit were so diverse. Like, astrogeochemistry is considered part of the astrobiology stuff, and it's just
Right.
very, very, separated in a way.
So right now, the biology of humans in space is one of these things that we worry about because we have humans in space. Have you considered being an astronaut?
Oh, I would love to, except when the last round of applications came out, I'm like half an inch too tall for
Oh,
yeah,
seriously?
for at least because at that time the designs were for, I think the limit is like 6'2" or 6'3", and for the Soyuz I wouldn't fit because I'm like right at 6'3".
Oh no. And you can never tell how tall someone is on the internet.
And
Um,
also being taller in space isn't an advantage.
no.
I can't handle as high of G forces because I'm taller, and that's also the limiting reason why,
Yeah.
because I would pass out a lot easier than a shorter person.
Yeah. Yeah, your brain is literally further from your heart and
Hmm.
your vascular system. Well, you describe all of the effects. You're the biologist.
Okay, so have you ever heard of like astronauts getting puffy face when they first get into space?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's because of their heart. Well, I mean, think of us in terms of evolution. Humans, where have we evolved?
Here
Earth.
on Earth.
What's our force upon us throughout all of our evolution? Gravity. And then we go into an environment where there's no gravity. And our body has never been in that before, doesn't know how to work. It's amazing that we can be up there at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that itself is, in my mind, for biology speaking, fascinating because we have never been in that sort of environment. So like the first thing when we get up there is the cardiovascular system needs to adapt. There's no longer gravity helping everything work. Our heart is always pumping against gravity. And then when
Right.
we get up there, there's no more gravity. So cardiac output actually decreases tremendously. And that's why the upper body actually has slightly more blood in it and looks puffier. And then the heart slowly adapts and heart rate actually decreases tremendously in space. I don't know the exact, I think it's like, depends on how long you're up there, but after like a certain amount of time, it like 11% decrease in cardiac output,
Wow.
which is both good and bad because then that leads into whole muscle loss and atrophy. You're not using your heart as much, and that itself could cause issues.
And there's been some recent, rather terrifying research come out showing that occasionally some of the veins in your neck will reverse direction without gravity.
I could see that happening because veins don't have really any pressure in them.
Mm-hmm.
So our veins function via valves that stop the backflow and our muscles contracting to push them back to our heart. Arteries work under pressure. For when our heart pumps, that blood continuously flows through the capillaries and then comes back. So from our legs up, our muscles pump, and we have muscles in our veins, which also then help pump along too. And that gets everything back to our heart. Now, in space, I could totally see that happening for the veins exiting, or even really pretty much anywhere in our body, because there's not technically any ups or downs, and you're not really using your muscles to help pump that blood back. So I could totally see blood going the wrong direction. There are still valves that help prevent that, but it would be a little bit more difficult to pump back to the heart to reoxygenate that blood.
And so far we haven't had any astronauts have strokes, but there is real concern because they are finding that they do build up clots, that one of these days, one of these clots is going to go someplace where it's devastating. So this is clearly one of the first big problems that we need to figure out. And I see that Kevlar 1066 has a question. Does the body adapt eventually while in microgravity? And does it vary by gender, age, etc.?
Oh, yes, all those. So it does adapt, but you got to remember our goal is to bring these astronauts back to Earth.
Yeah.
And then they still have to be able to function back on Earth. The body could slowly adapt in microgravity and be fine there, but can we bring that individual back to Earth and have them have not long-lasting negative effects when back on Earth? And that's the hard part. Just because muscle atrophy and bone atrophy are the two biggest things we always talk about for, effects of space travel. And what is it? 20% loss for an 11-day trip I forget what the exact percent, some 20% for a certain amount of days in space, or that's muscle atrophy. That's tremendous. Now the body, like we talked about, it does adapt while you're in space, but the goal is to get back and be okay on Earth still.
Well, and some of the adaptations aren't necessarily positive.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just realized we have a typo in your name. You're currently Dr. DW40.
Oh, people call me that all the time, and I get
stuff mixed up. Oh, I am so sorry.
It's okay. We're gonna fix this. I'm handing you mouse back.
Oh, Paranor said, could there be mechanical tech to help with the blood flow problem? I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are different pumps or pressure things they can put on them that act as the pump to move the blood flow. And I'm sure things like that exist. And if you ever look at any, videos or pictures of astronauts exercising in space, what's one common theme to it all?
The elastic stuff that they're working on.
It's all resistance band training because you can't just lift 25-pound dumbbells and get everything to work because you're in microgravity. You have to have resistance bands for those muscles to work. And even with that current exercise routine, there's still tremendous muscle and bone loss in space.
Thank you so much. Hours 1 and 2. Okay, that's the sink of bits. I'm thanking everyone who already donated bits. Thank you for people who donated bits. And thank you to Ironheart50 for the $10 donation. Quick station identification before we allow Wade to finish his thought. And I'm going to fix your name. You are now Dr. WD40.
Oh, it was on the screen. I'm like, it's fine in the title.
Yeah, no. It was wrong on the screen. Thank you, Keeper of Maps. So for those of you just joining, this is the CosmoQuest 40-hour hangout-a-thon. We are working to try and raise $40,000 by the end of December with a 40-hour push this weekend. This is the funding we need to keep all of our science communications, and other programs alive with CosmoQuest. Our program recently completed mapping out the rocks and boulders on the surface of Bennu. There is now a press release up on the Planetary Science Institute website where, if you were one of the people who helped map, you can find your name in the graphics we created. And you should have received notification yesterday if you were one of the people who mapped out one of the potential sample sites where OSIRIS-REx will be grabbing a sample in the coming year. A sample it will bring back to Earth. If you want to see more science like this happen, if you have ever found yourself saying, why isn't more money going to science? Well, you can change the way things work by giving directly. So please consider giving at streamlabs.com/CosmoQuestX. Now, as we work on trying to get humans to deal with space, we have the problems with circulation. We aren't circulizing humans. We do that plenty well on our own. Thank you. As we look at the problems with the cardiovascular system, as we look at needing to do more and more resistance exercise, what are some of the other things that we have to do to keep ourselves healthy, and some of the other problems that astronauts face?
Well, one is if there's any strong radiation being released from the sun.
Yes.
If we're traveling to somewhere like the moon or Mars, we're no longer protected by the electromagnetic field. And that's a big issue. I think in my mind, that's one of the biggest issues. We got really lucky during all the moon visits that it wasn't a solar maximum.
Yes.
And so that would send high energy particles through the body, and specifically the brain. And cancer risk increases. So those high energy particles, what happens is they cause the DNA to have double strand breaks. When the DNA breaks, it has to come back together for that cell to survive. And so you'd have neuronal loss, and neurons in the central nervous system, they don't grow back. And also those DNA breaks and damages could increase risk of cancer if it occurs in an area where it's supposed to control the cell cycle. So uncontrolled cell division could cause increased cancer risk, like any radiation could. Yeah. So long-term space travel outside of our electromagnetic field could be a really big issue. And if we don't have the protective mechanisms, which I don't know a lot about the current research on trying to protect us from this, but it's one of the biggest deterrents in my mind for long-duration space travel to the moon, or definitely to Mars.
Now, A. McMillan or Mullen, I'm not sure which pronunciation, is asking, do you know anything about the Kelly twins research, Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly? And what did they learn in comparison, and what were the lasting effects?
From what I remember, there were some epigenetic changes. So that's changes in gene expression. Twins, first of all, twin studies are always fascinating because they have the exact same genes.
Yes.
The differences that exist among twins are how one gene is expressed compared to another. That's called gene expression.
Can you explain epigenetics real fast for folks who aren't familiar with this phrase?
So epigenetics is the different genes being expressed. So two individuals have twins, the same genes. Yeah. One individual expresses that gene, the other individual does not. And the difference is usually due to environmental conditions. So epigenetics are when genes turn on and off due to the surrounding environment. And that goes back to the whole nature versus nurture debate. So nurturing could affect that epigenetics, nature could affect that epigenetics. So that was one of the big things with this study, is that they saw varying levels of different genes being expressed. I'm not sure which genes exactly. I'd have to go read the studies. But Scott Kelly, or his twin, had different levels of gene expression after long duration space travel compared to when he first came from Earth. And then the other one, if I remember, there was something related to the immune system. So the immune
Yes.
system still, I'm trying to remember if it worked fine or not fine in space. I don't remember the exact results, so I don't want to state it.
So the immune system breaks down in space
Yeah.
is what they've figured out. And the epigenetic response that the astronauts seem to have. Thank you, Planetary Pan, for the $100 donation. Thank you so much. Sorry for incomplete thought. That was just a really nice amount of money. And whoever on my team needs the Authy code, I'm going to hand my phone to Annie.
Wait, why do I need the Authy code?
I don't know. Someone is triggering the Authy code.
I didn't trigger the Authy.
Okay, whoever triggered it, ask Annie, and I'll hand them my phone. So thank you for that, and whoever's trying to log in, we almost have you.
Although I just found it.
So yeah, there's a paper. It came out in either Science or Nature about Mark and Scott Kelly, and one of the things that they found was a significant portion of the immune system shut down, and there was a massive stress response. And one of the interesting things that gets pointed out is it's unclear how much of the stress response is due to the body being like F microgravity.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a big effect in it.
But the other issue is living on the space station, you're with a whole bunch of people you may not necessarily get along with more than just professionally. It's a tiny, cramped space. It makes a submarine seem luxurious. And it smells to high heaven, according to every report I've read. So you're essentially trapped in the men's locker room where the toilets aren't cleaned enough, nor are the humans. And you have to live there with your entire team.
Yeah.
And so one of the people in asking for comparison data said a good comparison might be looking at prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm.
And that's horrifying.
Yeah. And not only that, the effect of microgravity, like, so there's a whole stress response, which could be it. And then the effect of microgravity itself on, activating certain immune responders and so forth. Does it work the same? Do we have the same defenses? Everything from, external to the internal defenses. Like, if vaccines are given in space, do they work?
Right.
Like, little things like that. Like, can our immune system actually have, it's called the adaptive immune system. So when you're first infected with something, the primary infection, that's when you get sick.
Yeah.
And then your body builds up the antibodies. And so the memory cells that are like, oh, that was influenza. I know how to fight that now. So the second time you get infected by that influenza virus, your body's then like, oh, gets rid of it. You never even know you were in contact with it.
Right.
And so in space, who knows what we're going to come in contact with out there? There's the little capsule of people who knows what they already have themselves and what they're already immune to and bringing with them. And then there's always a chance of finding something out there, which...
That's the terrifying part.
Yeah, which no one would be immune to.
Right.
And yeah, so a trip to Mars, not only thinking about the whole immune response, there's also the genetics you're sending there, knowing the different recessive and dominant traits that all those individuals have within their genes. Going to Mars and thinking about forming a Mars colony, what's happening there is called the founder effect. It's like taking 3 people, or like, say 6 people out of the population of the United States, putting them on an island, and if they're forming a colony, telling them to reproduce. And then all the genes then on that island are selected from those 6 people. And if there's 1 or 2 recessive traits that are hidden within that population could easily be wiped out by something very simple.
Right.
So that's if they're thinking about Mars colony and those kinds of things, they have to also think about the genetics of every initial individual they send there, making sure there could possibly be not, a recessive trait that wipes out the whole colony.
Yeah, and it all gets so frustrating, and and thank you, Wayne Johnson, for, oh my goodness, I don't know how many subs you just gifted, but it's amazing. 5 subs. Thank you so much, Wayne Johnson, for gifting the 5 subs. You're an awesome human. Everyone out there, get those brand new emotes out. Let's celebrate with some rocket lunches in the chat. So yay, go team. Trying to talk space gravity and be excited about donations at once. Yay. So back to death and destruction.
Sorry, if anyone's like excited about going to Mars, I might be ruining those thoughts with this biology talk.
I'm with you. And I envy your shirt so much because it's short sleeved and implies that you're someplace warm.
Florida. Let's say I teach all year in short sleeve button downs.
Yeah, I'm sitting right next to the heater and I'm still cold. I
actually said no to a Florida job once because they required long sleeve shirts and ties. And I'm like, no, thank you.
That's
too hot.
Wrong. That's so wrong.
Pants are bad enough.
Thank you so much, Trucker Kev, for the bits. Okay, so immune systems. They do more than just send white blood cells after invaders. One of the things that I learned from the Scott and Mark Kelly research is our immune system is actually capable of going, ooh, bad DNA, fix.
Yes.
Can you explain this process?
So it was actually, enzymes or proteins out there that are searching for breaks in our DNA, and then they fix it. And if that mechanism is inhibited in space, the DNA damage from radiation increases, substantially.
Yeah.
So if we can't, our body is very good at repairing these things, unless that system is broken.
And that's the part of the immune system. It's one of the parts of the immune system that apparently being in space breaks.
Yeah, so there are these cells called natural killer cells and also cytotoxic T cells. They behave kind of similarly, but the natural killer cells are called non-specific killers. So when these cells have DNA damage in them, usually they then release a protein signal that says, hey, I'm not right anymore. Yeah. I need someone to come destroy me so I don't affect other things and have the wrong gene expression and so forth. Then that natural killer cell comes in, detects that signal change, this little, antenna that sticks out from that cell that says, hey, I'm cancerous now. I should not be dividing anymore. And the problem with the immune system is if those natural killer cells are reduced and their effective levels are reduced in space, those damaged cells then persist.
Right.
And that would be very, very detrimental.
Yes, very. So we unfortunately know that those are decreased in space, and they don't actually come back after 6 months. And our immune system also apparently is able to deal with the occasional single cell that's like, hey, I might be leukemia.
Yeah.
We can still get leukemia, but the random cell our body generally can clean up. Can you explain this process? Because astrophysicist, I totally cannot make sense of this.
So when the cells can detect damage in their DNA, so it's like little stress signals that are like, okay, I'm not what I should be.
Right.
So what they do is they actually initiate, a self-destruction response. And
fair.
Yeah, so our body has certain ways to help protect itself, and if one cell doesn't divide correctly, it's okay typically. It's just labeled for destruction. It gets destroyed, and it's not a problem. Cancer happens when those cells aren't detected and destroyed.
Okay.
So in space, it might not be detected and destroyed when it would normally be detected and destroyed. So it's just our body's, checks and balances that it does. Like, okay, cell division, was it correct? If not correct, destroy. If true, keep. So we're pretty much just one big code.
Okay.
There, I described it in terms of coding.
I get that. I get that. Um, Now, it seems to me that the fact that these are the parts of your immune system that go, nope, I'm out, and the fact that there's so much radiation in space is a really bad combo. Can you tell me if I'm right or wrong?
Oh, that's a horrible combo. Yes, because if we have DNA damage from increased amounts of radiation, we have to repair that. And
Okay.
or kill those cells and destroy those cells. And destroying the cells isn't bad unless it's a cardiac cell or a neuron, because those
Yeah.
don't come back.
Right.
But all the other cells, it's perfectly fine to kill them, destroy them, and then make a new one. Because we don't want those damaged cells to
Right.
stay, because then they become something else.
That
This-
again seems like a bad idea. Um, so I'm going to pause for a moment for
Okay.
a station identification. Um, Once again, you are watching CosmoQuest, our 40-hour straight hangout-a-thon. We have as our guest this hour Wade, Dr. WD-40, who is a biologist who can help us understand all the ways that your immune system is trying to let space kill you because the body reacts poorly to being in space. If you like content like this, if you want to see content like this continue to exist, if you want to see us mapping out more worlds in our solar system, bringing you more podcasts, doing more science education, please consider giving. Thank you. I don't know what just happened, but it made a happy noise. My events is not telling me what it was. Oh, thank you. Thank you. $15 donation. Thank you very much. So yes, 40 hours. Please, please tweet all you can. So we would love it if you would give. We understand not everyone can. I can't donate to all the things that matter to me. But get the word out. You never know whose life you're going to share, but you're going to change by sharing science with them. We all have the things we geek about, and sometimes we don't realize other people share our geeks. Well, this is the place where everyone can share their geek, no matter how it might relate to space. And if it's not related to space, we'll tell you how it actually is related to space. And right now, we're talking to a biologist about how our bodies really, really hate space. Hate space. What would you say to a loved one who said, "Hey, I heard that Elon Musk is going to try and send people to Mars. We haven't figured out this radiation thing, but how bad could it be?"
Very bad. There's some stat I heard a long time ago. I don't want to say it because I don't know how accurate it is now. But if someone went with the mind and body of a 30-year-old to Mars and back during the current transfer time, they would come back with the mind and body of a 75-year-old.
That seems like a bad thing.
We can't have that. So right now, any Mars travel would be you go there and then that's where you live.
So one of the reports I saw said that Scott Kelly had cognitive declines from being in space.
Oh, yes. I remember that. Yep.
What exactly is causing these cognitive declines?
I'm not sure what would cause that. Let's see. It's probably just an effect in gene expression and, the body trying to adapt to that environment and not focusing on maintaining the neural network. So it's focused on keeping that individual alive and adapting to those new environments. So the whole cognitive decline would be a loss in synaptic connections. between different neurons in the brain. So yeah, that's actually really, really interesting. And that would be something real bad. So cognitive decline, you learn all the tasks you need to learn to be on Mars, and you get to Mars and you don't remember them.
And Scott was only in space for 1 year, and
Yeah.
missions to Mars, we're looking at 6 months there, however long you're going to be there. And you have to wait for the alignment to happen again,
Mhm.
and then 6 months back. Generally,
Yes.
people talk about this being a 3-year mission. If Scott Kelly was able to show cognitive declines after just 1 year
Mhm.
in space, you have to really worry about the people that we send. And
Exactly.
yeah, and at what point does the human body
Oh yeah,
just
planetary pan
go ahead?
decreased blood flow to the brain would be a big thing. And not only that, the brain, we have to clear our brain when we sleep. This is why sleeping is important for those of
Yes.
you who don't sleep. While we sleep, we have clearance and refreshing of all the fluids in our brain, all the nutrients, and getting all the toxins out.
Right.
And in microgravity, that flow of fluids might be affected. Well, it's probably affected. And that could also be a reason for the cognitive decline. Sorry to cut you off. I just
No, that was an awesome thing to flag. And so as we look at all these different issues, do we have any way of combating them? Is there like some magic pill I can take that tells my immune system or my epigenetics to behave in new ways?
unfortunately no. Yet.
Do we have any way of controlling epigenetics?
Yeah, traveling there and making our body think we're still on Earth.
Okay, so how do we make that happen?
Well, you can make a spinning spaceship that, as I've seen this in all the sci-fi movies, that mimics gravity, and I think that's actually very accurate. We need to make our bodies think we're still in gravity during the travel there.
And
And that,
protect from space radiation.
yeah, what was that, like 6 feet of lead that we need or something?
Yeah, or a couple feet of water. That's probably
Yeah,
easier. Just
yeah.
keep your water in the outer hull and fill it with tilapia or something.
Yeah, so those two issues pretty much protect the body from radiation and make it think it's still on Earth.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's a start. Now, the question that initially came up included a question of gender and age. At what
Yeah, I remember
age
that.
does our natural immune system start to go, and I'm done?
Well, there's a reason why you only get your vaccines in your younger years, because that's when your adaptive immune system is most responsive. It's after like age 16 when the thymus actually starts decreasing in effectiveness.
Oh no.
Yeah, so very, very young. So it's when you're older, it's actually harder to create an adaptive immune response. Um, but it's still there. It's just not as effective as when we are younger, because the thymus, where the adaptive immune response is regulated, is the biggest factor in vaccine efficiency or in
And this is
effectiveness.
why everyone should still get their vaccines,
Mhm.
but there's an age-related failure rate.
Yes, yes, and like that's why also flu shots are important too, especially in older people. So they give themselves a boost every
Right.
flu season, and it might
And
not be a long lasting every flu season effect, but it's a good enough boost to get through that season.
yeah, immune systems are
Mhm.
evil, and the older you get, the more evil they are. And astronauts are not young humans generally.
Yeah, and because they want their astronauts to be trained professionals.
Right.
But
So we're looking at your typical astronaut is in their 40s.
mhm, yeah,
My age.
I feel like the astronauts going to Mars should be in their early 30s, at least right now.
So we're looking at people who just finished their PhD.
Yeah, and then when you apply, you need 5 years of experience
So
before applying. So you're already put yourself at 32 if you got your
yeah,
PhD fast before you can
yeah,
even apply. And that was the
yeah.
other reason I couldn't apply, because right now I'm only almost 30. So like they would throw my application out because of my lack of experience.
Right, right. Yeah. Thank you so much, the expendable red shirt. I promise not to expend you. Thank you so much for the donation. And I see Planetary Pan commenting, and then there was John Glenn. And the reason that she brings up John Glenn, I believe, is because he flew both when he was a young man as part of the Mercury program, and then he returned to space in his 60s as part of the
Yep.
space shuttle program.
Mhm. So
I
like
don't know
I don't know.
anything about that medical research. I don't know if you do
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, I don't know any of the research behind that one. But I'm
He
sure
was kick ass. I think that's
yeah.
basically where it
Yeah.
starts.
I'm sure he had more severe effects after flying when he was older compared to when he was younger. And like
Yes.
response time for his body adapting and so forth. Because everything stops working as well as you age.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting to experience that. Stay young. I recommend it.
Yeah, I'm starting to experience it, and I'm still kind of young.
The first time I was able to not pull an all-nighter without serious harm was the year I turned 32. So that for me, I mean, lots of people talk about the thing that really affected them in getting older, whether it be a gray hair or the first noticeable wrinkle. They only come in one. I'd love to know how that happens. But for me, it was the first time I pulled an all-nighter and someone looked at me and said, "You're not safe to drive." Because as an astronomer, pulling an all-nighter is just like normal. But this whole realization that you do need to sleep before you then drive a car, it was like, crap, I'm old now. Um, Astronomers live dangerous lives. It's just part of their
Yeah,
jobs.
back during my undergrad, another part of my research was looking at exoplanet transits at the university. And so I learned how to function from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah.
because that's when you do telescope observations.
Yeah, exactly. In graduate school, I did a lot of observing time, and I there would be months where, except for depending on what I was observing, either the brightest phase of the moon or the darkest phase of the moon, um, I would be 4 nights on, 4 nights off, 4 nights on, 3 nights off, 3 nights on, 4 nights off, depending on how they staggered things. And this constant back and forth was something you can swing when you're young.
Later, it's not good.
Yeah, and there are professional astronomers who continue to do this. And one of the things that was noticed at one of the observatories I worked at was that the astronomers, they really didn't make it to 70. And what wasn't known was how much of it was due to switching altitude constantly, how much of it was due to switching sleep cycles constantly, and just how much of it was due to living in a remote location.
Yeah, I could. So circadian rhythms
Yeah.
is something I studied a little bit, not study, but like had a class on. And
Yeah.
so switch shift workers, it's super, super dangerous to be doing that to your body. Our body
Yes.
works on a natural rhythm. And this is why they say try to go to bed same time every night, wake up same time.
Yes.
Because your body has certain important functions that happen based on that rhythm. And if you throw that rhythm out of whack constantly, it's actually very, very dangerous for you. And increasing risk of accidents they find while driving, and like, or even so the study was mostly done on switch shift workers in hospitals for doctors and stuff, because it's very common there. It's like, okay, you're working third shift this week, and the next week you're going to be first shift because we rearrange the schedule. And they're actually more prone to making mistakes in the hospital environment and also getting into accidents to and from the hospital because their rhythms just aren't ever consistent. And even this does relate to space travel because there's always a group of astronauts awake on the International Space Station at all times.
Right.
So they're all, it's called entrainment. Like before the astronauts used to go up in the shuttle missions, they'd spend a few days in a very, very bright room and then a very, very dark room to entrain themselves to when they'd be working in space. So it's kind of getting through the whole jet lag thing before they go up there. And one of my professors where I did my undergrad was an astronaut. So he'd tell stories about this, and he flew on a couple shuttle missions, and his mission kept getting delayed, and they kept he had to entrain himself like 3 different times because of delays. He was supposed to be the shuttle right after Challenger, and so his flight got delayed multiple times because of that.
Yeah.
So he went through the stories of how they had to re-entrain themselves just to go up to space so they'd be awake when they're supposed to be working.
And they do tend to run the International Space Station. I don't know which one it's on currently, but they were keeping it on either Moscow or Houston time so that the astronauts would all have one consistent sleep schedule. And they actually isolate the astronauts for a variety of different reasons prior to launch to get them on the correct sleep schedule, to make sure they're not carrying the cold or flu to the International Space Station. So they isolate them for the incubation period of a lot of common bugs that people can catch. And there's only so much you can do, though. So we have them exercising in space. We are studying all the things that can go wrong. We're acknowledging you have puffy body syndrome. We haven't even hit on how space hits eyes. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know a lot about that, but I can imagine it does have an effect because we have fluid in our eyes. And that fluid in at least the front of our eye is moving. The fluid inside our eye is not moving. I could see it having an effect on the eye, and also
I love your accidental pun, by the way.
And so the eye also has a unique shape it needs to have too. And that shape is also affected by gravity. So in microgravity, the eye could also expand a little bit.
Yeah.
And that would change your focus and actually change vision. And I could see that having an effect as well.
Oh, thank you, Rocco Robotics, for the $100. Thank you so much. That is absolutely amazing. I'm looking to see if I've missed anything else. My computer is just like, I shall make you log in now. I'm just gonna have to go with thank you, and I can't. Streamlabs currently hates me. Streamlabs, why are you full of hate? There we go. Ooh, we have a doggo.
Oh, behind me? Oh,
no. My dog just came in. Come here, Eddie. Come here. Come on up. Come up. Show yourself on camera.
Watson.
Yes, Watson is adorable. This is Eddie. He is checking to make sure there's nothing that we can give him, but he heard a thank you. And so we shall have the first doggy treat of the day. Come on up. Come on up. Up. Good boy. You want this? Hi. So, we're starting to run down the hour. One thing, so the thing about eyeballs that I wanted to point out, because it is the creepiest thing I've heard so far, is the astronauts have reported that when they close their eyes in space, they can see the flashes caused by cosmic rays triggering the retina. And
I can see that happening. So the way the eye works is that we have 3 different kinds of cones and then 1 rod. The cones work for color vision. The rods work for dark light. And in each side of one of those, the thing that makes them different is this, it's called an opsin protein. And all that does, let's say it's the protein for seeing red light. Red has a certain wavelength that hits that protein and it changes its shape. And that's how we see in red. The green wavelength does not change that protein. So it's really, really fascinating how vision works. And so those cosmic rays, what they're doing is they're going through the eye. The visible light gets blocked by the eye. And they're actually at a wavelength where they can turn those proteins and change their shape. And then, so they're actually seeing cosmic rays, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think it's horrifying. I think it is horrifying.
Yeah, and yeah, I never thought of that would be.
If the
What's the energy of cosmic rays?
It's all over the map, but mostly very high. We're not talking gamma rays all the time, but there's a full spectrum.
X-rays, yeah, because if it goes down in the X-ray range, it could be causing damage, and then you actually
yes. That's a thing. Vision never fully returns once they return to Earth. So does anyone in the audience still want to be an astronaut? This is the real question.
I still do. I'll do it. My only attachments are my 2 pets, and they'll be okay.
That works. So I see Paranor is still saying yes, and Phoenix is saying I would tomorrow. Hello, Phoenix. It's good to see you there.
Yep,
A. Macmillan is saying I wanted to be an astronaut my entire life. Hexacoron. Okay, so our entire audience is less grossed out about everything than I am.
Yep. Hey, if I'm up there and understanding everything that's happening to my body, I already know the risks. And I'm still up there because I want to be up there, because me being up there is a great science experiment to maybe make it better in the future, so that other people go through as much damage.
Annie just said as she passed out of the room, toilets. I know about space toilets. Thank you so much, Sully Two Cats, for tipping the $10. Thank you so much. So we're winding out this hour. If there was any one thing about astrobiology and human biology in space that you wanted to make sure everyone knew, what is that one thing you would go from person to person telling them?
That humans in space is not like, how do I want to phrase this? We're not supposed to be there.
Valid. We are not supposed to be there. This is entirely true.
But our bodies do adapt. We just need to get them back here and once they're back on Earth. And that's where all the research is. So yes, we can go there and survive there. But what happens when we come home?
Right. And we can't reproduce in microgravity. The one fact I would make sure everyone knows is that there are problems with skin forming in space. And so they've had issues of like embryos that had no skin.
Oh, yeah, because the developmental differences would be completely different in the cues for development. I never thought about that one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like having skin.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have. I mean, it'd be easy to study your muscles. No.
I don't think you'd survive the experience, however.
You wouldn't.
So, yeah. I'm glad that we have people out there who are willing to be astronauts, who are willing to have all these risks. I'm not going to do it. Not me.
I would still do it. Oh, there's a question, Daddy Cupcake. I mean, would help with spine damage. I don't know if it could help reverse the damage. but you wouldn't have the gravity pushing down on the damage anymore for any like crushing damage that might be happening. So that would be negated, but you're still going to be moving, and that movement could cause pinches and so forth. But to fix the damage, no, I wouldn't be able to see that. You never know, though.
And one of the things that they've talked about is because there isn't as much harm to the joints in outer space.
Mm-hmm.
If you're suffering from degenerative issues, going to space may allow what limited mobility you have to do better, and it may slow or stop degeneration that is already taking place.
Yeah, I could see that. It depends on the type of degeneration is from and not something like an autoimmune disease. Then
Right.
I could see that working. Like if it's like rheumatoid arthritis, that's going to keep, that'd be immune response. Then who knows how that would be affected in space then. But impact related degeneration, I could see being slowed down in space, but then it's a catch-22.
Right.
Is that person coming back? Because when they come back, then that severe muscle and bone loss would then cause even more pain and issues.
And this is where one of the interesting conversations I've heard people have, not at the I can make policy decisions, but at the I can write science fiction novels level, is senior citizen homes in low gravity environments. And that idea intrigues me. If I'm already like done with all the stuff I want to get done in life, I am fine with dealing with potential life-ending issues in space. That works.
A space station senior citizen home.
Yeah, why not? Moon, microgravity on the moon, that would work.
Just have to get them there, and they have to survive liftoff.
Exactly. Liftoff is a little bit more difficult than one would wish for. This is true.
Yeah, that could, true. For someone with osteoporosis, that could break some bones.
Oh, yeah. Memory foam. We need the expanse solution. Different cushy beds that can absorb all that force. We're not there yet.
Oh, we never got. I just saw about the twin study with telomeres, and
yeah, that's just creepy. So, can you explain what a telomere is?
So, at the ends of each of our chromosomes, we have these little caps. They're called telomeres. It's just a long sequence of repeated nucleotides or DNA that has no information in it. And as we're growing, our cells divide, from the embryo stage to what we are now. So billions and billions of divisions. The purpose of those telomeres is that each division, there's like a little section at the end that can't get replicated. So as we age, this is one of the biggest theories in aging is telomere shortening. So those telomeres get shorter, and shorter as more division occurs. And then the problem with that is that once those telomeres go away, they'll start hitting genes. And that's one of the ideas with aging. And it's thought that these telomeres are there as an anti-cancer mechanism that our body designed. Because if cancer cells are controlling uncontrolled division, then eventually those telomeres will shorten, and then the genes will be hit, and then the cells will kill themselves. But they find cancer has an active enzyme in it. Well, some cancers, this enzyme called telomerase is there. Telomerase lengthens telomeres. And those are what are present in our germ cells, which are producing our, eggs and sperm. And so that's why our telomeres are longest in those germline cells, because there's an enzyme called telomerase. Cancer activates that and prevents that telomere shortening. But in space, I actually found Scott Kelly increase his telomere length and had some telomerase activity. But when he got back to, this is the really weird part. When he came back, it went back to normal.
Yeah. And in some cases was remarkably shorter.
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
No. So it's just like, if you stay in space, that's suggesting that you can live longer if you subscribe to the telomere aging theory. But when you come home, you go back to where you were or worse.
Right, right. This is where I want to see them do studies with something longer lived than a mouse in space.
Yes.
And
Mice are great but horrible in science.
right. And their genes have been altered so many ways that
Yep.
I would like them to take up just like like a parrot will live for a gazillion years, by which I mean 75 to 100 in some
Mhm.
cases. Imagine a parrot adapted to life in the International Space Station. The only issue with parrots is they're really dirty animals,
Yes.
and you probably would need to contain them, and parrots do like to have a great deal of space and socialization. But there's
Turtles.
gotta be a turtles. I have a turtle. It will outlive me. I
Yeah.
need to put my turtle in my will. Um,
Yeah, turtles live a
yeah.
long time. They'd be great models. But then, like, you got to think if it's a 100-year study, what
Right, right.
what scientist wants to do a 100-year study?
Well, the there are those that do it. I think of the tar pitch drip experiments that take
Yeah.
place. Um, yeah, science is wild. And we have entered in 1 minute hour 3,
Whew.
and you have been here with us. Sorry, we're entering hour 4, completing hour 3. Um, it has been an amazing go. Now, can you tell our audience how they can find more of you so they can follow along and continue to learn from you?
So yeah, I stream on Twitch, Dr. W40. So you follow me there. I also do the Twitter. I'm not really big on other social medias. And I stream sometimes from home. Recently, I've gotten into outdoor streams. Like the other day, I went and watched the lunch down on the beach. One time I did get a media pass and I got really close with all the other people that take the
Yeah.
pictures and do the live streams. But that was just a one-time thing because I don't work with an accredited space news source.
Oh
But
no.
so I just go close and on the beach to watch the lunch. And so a lot of outdoor streams. We talk about nature. I do metal detecting and, you know, and I talk about science as I metal detect. So we could easily have this conversation on life in space as I'm metal detecting.
I
Because
okay. I'm
I'm trying to get
keep
outside.
I'm going to lose my Bluetooth
Oh,
at any moment
beep,
as
beep.
we enter the next hour. Um, so I I hope I can still hear you. I'm not entirely sure. Um, so we are going to wind out this hour, and everyone out there, please go follow Wade, Dr. WD40 on Twitter and Twitch. You will not regret your decision. And I just want to say it's been a tremendous pleasure to have you here today. And I am now going to go to talking to all of you about the amazing suite of giveaways we have, and also swapping out from one set of Bluetooth to another so I can continue to hear our guests.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. If you do need me for another time slot tomorrow evening, I might be available. We talk about extremophiles or something like that. So
That would
just
be awesome.
let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, and I will see you on the inner tubes.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.